Thanks for joining us on this lovely evening. I would love to introduce my two co-hosts to you. But first of all, I want to thank all our marvelous guests that joined us in 2018. And thank you all for sharing your love and support and your courageous journey with us. So first, I'm going to introduce Mr. Fabian Lyon to come on down and join me. Welcome to the Caribbean Edge. How are you this evening?
Thank you very much, Dawn.
Glad to have you.
Okay, and I'm glad to be here. And I consider this a great opportunity to be a part of this team, and especially to our audience who we value so much, just to bring you some very interesting topics and stories, and to make our audience feel very interactive with what we're doing here.
Awesome.
So just a little short on myself. I am a writer for the Miami Herald, and I've been entrenched in the community for at least 18 years, and that is why this was a very good opportunity for me. So
Awesome.
Without any further ado.
Awesome. So thank you, Fabian, for that. And of course, being so strong in the community yourself, we definitely love having you on board with us here. Our next co-host is Miss Cheryl Ann Marshall, a strong force in the community, and we are absolutely honored to have her on board with us. So welcome, Cheryl Ann.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Caribbean Edge. I want to apologize for the late start we had due to a few technical difficulties, but we are here for you and ready to start our topic of the new year. I want to wish everyone a happy new year. Happy 2019, everybody. And my name is Cheryl Ann Marshall. I'm basically a people's advocate. I'm here as a voice for the people. I'm very interested in what you have to say, our audience, and I want to be able to hear your opinions on all of the topics that we have to offer. And I'm very happy to be here. This is one of the things that I've always wanted to do, because I've always wanted to engage with the people that are out there. I want to hear what you have to say, and I want people to interact with us on all of the various topics that we have to offer.
Oh, welcome. Welcome both. We're so excited for the Caribbean Edge, which is, you know, for us as Caribbean people, our forum of being able to address topics in the community, recognize people in our community that are standing up or that are willing to share their journey with us. So welcome once again, both of you. So our topic tonight obviously is about sexual abuse against our children, our young boys, our young girls. And, you know, we picked this topic tonight because of, you know, the R.Kelly documentary that's out there about a lot of people, women in particular, surviving R.Kelly. So, you know, we know quite a few tips from it, like, you know, he married Aaliyah when she was 15 years old. It was recently proven that he did know her age. He was 27 at the time. We've heard stories about, you know, women being held against their will, some parents speaking out publicly. Some of the women are speaking out about, you know, their abuse, the control, the mind control that they had, as well as physical violence. His wife or ex-wife has spoken out. She has 3 kids for him as well. And, you know, just some of the backlash some of these women have gotten from speaking out, speaking their truth. I mean, yes, he has not been charged yet, but what are you guys' thoughts on that? How do you feel about it? Guilty or not guilty?
You know, these are alleged, of course.
Yes.
In my humble opinion, from what I've seen, just by the fact that he released this song that said, "I admit I did it," tells me a lot. I looked at the lyrics on that song. I even posted it to my social media earlier. The lyrics of that song basically says, "I admit I did it." he explains why he did it. So you get an insight of what he was thinking, but to me, it's a confession. To me, it's a confession that he is guilty.
Mhm. Well, I think that these are still allegations, but what we can do is we can use that topic to delve into an issue that is obviously taboo, that is sensitive, especially given our Caribbean background. We can all relate to this was a subject that was kind of hush-hush growing up, whether we knew of somebody or knew of somebody that knew somebody else that experienced this kind of tragedy really in their life.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why we chose this topic is to kind of bring it to the surface, stop, brushing it under the carpet, and really in some way try to provoke some discussion on this. So Don, just tell me like what is just the experience of growing up in Jamaica, for example, and how is this subject dealt with as opposed to how you think it's being dealt with now?
Right. So, being from Jamaica, growing up there, it was not dealt with, based on my experience. Very hush-hush. I have people within my own family that are pedophiles that have, sexually abused young girls. I don't think many families are without that scar or that horrible tragedy that's happened, and it goes hushed. It's more of an embarrassment to the family to talk about it. There's no help. There's no calling the police. So people live in silence. If you're a victim, you just don't speak out about it. And for the most part, you take it to the grave, and the person that did it to you takes it to the grave. And it carries through your life, I believe, because you never forget. And then you either, in R.Kelly's case, not to mention him again, but there are reports that he was a victim as well. He was also abused by a sister. I don't take that with a grain of salt one way or the other, because if someone did something so torturous to you, I believe that you should not repeat that. You're responsible for your own actions despite what has happened to you. Mm-hmm. How is it in Trinidad?
I've basically never encountered someone that has come to me with such tumultuous allegations, but I put myself in that person's shoes, and I can see that they might feel that they themselves are to blame to some degree.
Absolutely.
I could see why is it that they might not want to discuss this with anyone else, because they might feel that they themselves might have put themselves in this position, and would not even begin to be able to word it towards their mom or their dad or to anybody else. Well, you know what? This person touched me in an inappropriate manner. Because in Trinidad, the first thing my mother would probably say to me, well, what did you do? What did you do for that to happen? And where were you? And so it's kind of a subject that will be very hard to bring up to my parents or anybody else. It's
or what were you wearing to provoke this behavior? Right. And not to mention, a lot of abusers are people that you know. Yes. They're either going to be a relative or someone that you've trusted,
without a doubt,
your child to.
Right.
And that's why, for me personally, I believe being a parent, a true, strong parent, makes a difference to your kids and the safety of your kids. So I think a lot of the ownership, being an adult now, it goes to your parents. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I have 2 children, and I was very careful with my kids. I was concerned where I left my kids, who I left them with. And I remember one of my daughter's friends, they used to go on trips to Orlando or wherever they went. And one of the parents would freely, it was a male figure, would freely allow like young girls to go on this trip with him. The women, the parents would allow it. So my daughter and I got into this conversation saying, there's absolutely no way I would send you on a trip with a male figure, no wife, no girlfriend, no one involved, because, of course, as your kids, they don't understand that, but that's why you're the adult. That's why you're making the choices for your kids, not to put them in those vulnerable situations. And it's not to say this guy was a bad guy. It's just to say that's my choice as a mom, not to put my kids in that situation because I know better. And I was just as careful with my boy as I was with my girl, because they're both equally important, and boys are abused and more unlikely to come out and say it, because boys have this, you gotta be a man, you gotta be tough. So to say that you were sexually abused is never a good thing.
Right. So first of all, the Caribbean Edge family, if you'd like to chime in, we welcome any post that you can make at this time, and we'll definitely check it before the show is over. Not to say R.Kelly's the only celebrity. There was also the reports of the U.S. Olympic gymnast coach as well, and what he was doing for, or allegedly doing for all those years. So the question is, I think it is incumbent on parents, as you said, to kind of vet who their children are around, you know, whether it's coaches, and not just assume that this is a good person and it can be a celebrity of any sort. So when I first heard of this story, the first thing that came to mind was growing up in Jamaica, you know, and just the things that we would hear. And I think one of the solutions is having the children know that there's somebody that is going to listen, that what they're saying is credible, you know, and not to silence our children when they do come to you, you know. So if there's one thing that maybe we can all do better, is to open up that line of communication, not make it a stigma, not make it something where they're afraid or intimidated to come to a parent, to a mom, or even to an auntie, or, you know, and say, grandma, or say, look, this has been going on, you know. But if there's always that barrier there, that child is always going to feel reluctant, you know, to bring something to a parent if that parent has rebuffed what they have said on maybe on a previous occasion.
Of course.
I think you have to have real talk, real conversations with your kids. I agree with you, because, and you have to be very specific. I was very specific with my kids. I'm like, look, if someone messes with you and touches you inappropriately, then I need to know. I don't care what they threatened you with, because a lot of abusers threaten you in some way, shape, or form. You mentioned sports as well. I watched this video recently where this hockey player was a victim by his hockey coach, and he molested this young boy 150 times. And got away with it. You know, he ended up writing a book about it, and he's been traveling, and he says people have come up to him on his journey with their head down and just come up to him and said, me too. And I felt so ashamed as a person. I felt so, my heart went out to this man. He's an older man now, so obviously he's able, or talking more freely about it, but I can't imagine as a kid laying there and being victimized 150 times, like just counting them, and no one in the world to go to. And as a society, I agree, absolutely, we have to have the conversations. That's why we're doing it tonight, to have parents start talking to your children, because you are definitely the best resource for your children. And we need more awareness in the community. I think, you know, one of the things for us is getting out there and spreading that awareness as well.
Right.
And having people that can come on our show and talk about these issues as well.
Right. I think also it needs to be a part of the school curriculum. I mean, I think this taboo of not discussing, granted at a certain age, but these are everyday real things. You know, this is not just something reserved for, you know, a specific date or nothing. This is something that goes on every single day, every single hour. And as such, we need to let our young people know, look, if this is happening to you, this is the recourse that you have. Once again, many children have this kind of guilt of coming and even telling a classmate or a teacher. But I believe in some form it needs to be a part of the curriculum, whether it's deemed in the middle school but we need to empower, starting with our children, an ability to convey that message to a trusted source. And if not, it will forever be kind of swept under the rug. And for older victims, adult people, they too need to feel that, you know, they can go somewhere and not turn around and be the victim, yet feel like they are on trial, which happens many times.
Yeah.
You know, because then they have to prove their innocence, and it shouldn't be that way. You know, so I'm glad we're discussing. This is a tough subject.
It is.
But it's a subject that has to be addressed.
Yeah.
It has to be addressed.
And I agree. I understand where people come from when they just would rather not think about it. I think it hurts the victims a lot to have to even speak out about it, about being abused, the shame that comes with it. So I can certainly see why it is so difficult for people to do it, because you've tried to bury it inside you for so long. And then some people say, well, if I talk about it, what change is that going to bring about? It's just going to bring me shame. But, you know, for people that have spoken out, it may bring some personal relief to them as well. And they're able to use their own personal forum, so to speak, to get their message across, because we learn best from each other. And we're seeing that more and more in today's society. I'm going to ask you this, Cheryl Ann, as well. Do you think it would be any different if the people that came out 10 years ago against R.Kelly and made these accusations, if they were white versus black? Do you think in our society, and I want both of you to think about that, would that have made a difference?
I think it might have. I think it very well might have, because as much as we would like to believe that we're no longer living in this racial world, we very much are. We very much are. And for some reason, when black people speak out, it's not basically taken with the respect that is taken with when white people speak out. Sad to say, very sad to say, but I think it might have made a difference. I think it very much might have made a difference. But look at the polls that we looked at before doing the show, where 1 in 5 boys are being molested, sexually assaulted. 1 in 3 girls are being sexually abused. I mean, it's not something that we can control, but it is something that we can try to put a stop to by basically making everyone aware and making these children aware that it's not a bad thing and that it is something that they can speak to us about.
Right. And speak to a counselor at school if you can't speak to your parents. We're hoping that parents will also share this episode with your children as well, because I find that my personal experiences, if I'm having conversations with my kids and they understand what I personally went through, they can relate more to it. My daughter actually said to me, Mom, You need to finish writing your story, because she wants to know. She's at that age where she wants to know my life story. I didn't want to know my dad's life story until he was much older, and I lost the opportunity because he passed away. But I think it's very important that your kids understand, and they have to be at the right age as well to understand where you're coming from as well.
They do.
So what are your thoughts? Do you think it made a difference that 20 years ago when, R.Kelly first started these charges, would it have been different if the assault charges were against young white girls?
Well, I do know that there is a disparity in the judicial system that we cannot ignore. I will say, though, it's incumbent on us as a society to take ownership of whatever justice we deem to be proper. So for us to wait on other people to take action, I think that we have to own our responsibility. Are we living up to taking the necessary actions to make sure that this stops? So we can always say, well, they would have done differently to another ethnic group, which is probably true, but at the same time, we need to start at home, so to speak, and get that discussion going with family members. I think a round table. I mean, we can talk about everything else, but this should be at the top of the list. We have time to talk about current events and sports and music and all the other stuff, but what's going to impact a child more negatively than this? I can't think of anything else.
Right. Well, I think the whole problem lies with we don't even talk to our children about sex itself.
Right.
So, I'm very much excluded from that, because from the very beginning, I made it a point to bring that up. But a lot of parents don't talk to children about sex itself, which is why they won't talk to you about whatever sexual abuse that they might have encountered. They won't, because sex is never a topic in the household.
It's not.
It's not. It's not. So why is it that your child would come to tell you, I've been sexually abused, when you have never brought up sex as a topic in your household?
That's a good point.
Of course. Why?
And then we find that these kids are having sex at 13 years old.
Thank you. My children have always said to me, Mommy, oh my God, you're so blunt, you're so out there, because I've brought up that topic. I've brought up that topic to them, But you have to open up. For you to be able to get your children to open up to you, you are the one to instigate these topics. You are the one, and you have to find ways around it.
Because they're going to say, Mom, I don't want to talk about it.
Without actually bringing it up. You have to find ways around it so that they can feel comfortable enough to come to you to say, hey, Mom, Dad, this is what happened.
Yeah. And we're getting some comments, so thank you guys for commenting on our show. We'll definitely go in and we'll be able to answer and respond to a lot of them, but we definitely appreciate your responses as well. I know some of our viewers took time out to respond to the poll, and overwhelmingly felt that, there were concerns with R.Kelly and that these women were speaking out and telling the truth. We had one viewer who didn't care, but she didn't say why she didn't care. Probably just not a direct impact on herself as well. And hence our conversation. This is not just about R.Kelly, because he's one person in the society that's doing this. We have doctors, lawyers, politicians, fathers, uncles, aunts, nieces that are doing this, that need to stop, or they turn a blind eye. And I think that came up a lot in the conversations that I've read, where people were actually saying this is not just about R. Kelly, it's about their responses or the people that were around him, people that knew there was a bed in the actual studio. Where he would take advantage of these young girls. I don't know what they're called, but these associates of his that would actually scout these young girls at concerts or at the schools. And then the parents that were so starstruck by, you know, his fame and wanting their kids to have the assistance. But, you know, his reputation has been there for years. So that part of it I definitely don't understand. There's a lot of celebrities that are pulling back from him now and, you know, not happy that they, you know, partnered with him, but his reputation has been there for over 2 decades.
Well, what I found quite intriguing in all this was that his record sales actually spiked.
Absolutely.
After this news broke, and that was very interesting to me.
I can address that.
Okay.
I can easily address that. Those ratings spiked because people are interested to see where is he coming from with his music. This person who has molested, allegedly, these young children, they want to know, well, I've been listening to his music all of this time. Let me see what I've missed.
So curiosity.
It is curiosity. It is.